I like Pocari. Did you know that I like Pocari? What I said just now is actually comparable to exactly what episode 1 of Phantasy Star Online 2 episode Oracle did. Which is give you all the answers at the very beginning and then ask you questions throughout the entire story. Or well, episode, in which we're actually already given a lot of answers, so The question is, if we already have most of the answers, as well as actually see a lot of the things that are going to happen already, how is this story actually still enjoyable even though you already technically got spoilers? This video and my analysis for episode 1 of PSO2 episode Oracle will be covering exactly that, and showing you how exactly this dream sequence uses quote-unquote spoilers to be a plot device. And so if you haven't already realized, I think I should probably say this, but spoilers! So before we go into anything further, let's take a look at what questions and answers actually do for us as the viewer when it comes to consuming media. I'm pretty sure a lot of authors would actually agree with me when it comes to saying, is it better to have more questions or is it better to have more answers? And of course, the simple answer is, it's better to have more questions. Why? Because it keeps the viewers curious and actually engaged with your story. Let's start by taking a look at the perspective of someone who's never played the Phantasy Star Online 2 story before. In the very first 40 seconds of episode Oracle, we have this very weird dream-like sequence where first we see the destruction of a city and then stuff is just getting completely destroyed, like what is going on? Which then cuts into Ash's surprised face, looking around like he doesn't know where he is and what everyone's doing, seeing the silhouette faces of every person including Afin himself. And immediately cutting into a silhouette of Matoy, in which both Afin and Matoy did actually call out his name as well. And this is actually an important detail because Ash never actually reveals his name officially until at least halfway through the episode. Coming into the last part of the dream sequence, we see Ash back as a child, in which here, Xion is actually telling him that he needs to be separated for some reason. Which then cuts into a very interesting shot, just like how Ash is maybe in somewhere underwater. Possibly a test tube or so. And we see him metaphorically trying to grasp Xion's hand as it disappears. And he wakes up into reality, losing grasp of his dreams and potentially memories. The reason I really like Ash's dream sequence is because, like I said at the very beginning of this video, it actually answers a lot of questions so that us as a viewer don't get too overloaded with questions and then we can just sit and enjoy the episode while also still giving us more questions at the same time. But that's besides the point for now. So as a super quick recap, we actually saw a city being completely destroyed. We see Ash meeting Afin and also Matoy. And then lastly, we see Ash as a kid being separated from Xion and potentially actually experimented on. That, and lastly, at the end of the dream sequence and also at the beginning of the very next scene, after Regius's explanation about Oracle, we see Ash's pendant actually being very focused on for some reason as well. Although the pendant isn't actually exactly relevant in this episode, so we're not going to be talking about it for now, but just do keep that in mind as a small detail. So in chronological order of what happened in the episode itself, Ash meets Afin, which answers one of the questions of the dream sequence of who this person is. A little bit later on in the story, after the rookie team gets attacked by Darkers on Navirius, annihilated. In which honestly I really have to praise that scene because they really made Darkers seem really fast and menacing that it can just appear at any time, in contrary to how they really failed to make Darker feel like a threat in Phantasy Star Online 2's game itself. So wonderful job in episode Oracle, SEGA. I really appreciate that. But yeah, for the scene, Afin kind of gets a bit depressed and then talks about nothing changed from 10 years ago. Meaning he's referencing to some Darker attack where his sister actually went missing. In which we actually do get to see this scene in Ash's dream sequence, even though Ash himself, to Afin, did not say anything, and said that his encounter with Darkers on Navirius was actually the very first time he encountered Darkers to begin with. Which actually kind of leaves the question a bit of how candid Ash actually is in telling the truth to other people. Actually, in fact, Ash seems to avoid that topic entirely because he basically just told his name to Afin and changed the topic completely. So that in itself is definitely something to think about. And then lastly, at the very end of the episode, Shion just appears out of nowhere and be like, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. And Ash, of course, is just like surprised out of his life. Like, oh my goodness, where have you been my entire life? Well, okay, it's not exactly like that, but you get the main idea. He was so surprised and dumbfounded that he literally just couldn't say anything at that point. As a bonus, Shion also did tell Ash that this girl's name is Matoi. And there you have it. A lot of questions that actually came up in episode Oracle that is answered to an extent in the dream sequence at the beginning of the episode. Starting with the question of, what's with this attack on the city? We know that something happened 10 years ago because Afin told us in the middle of the story. The second question being, who exactly is this person calling us partner? It's Afin. Third, who's this girl? Although it wasn't really clear, I'm pretty sure a lot of people should easily be able to say that it's Matoi, even if they've actually never seen Phantasy Star before. And the last question is, what happened in Ash's past? In which this fourth sequence is actually a big question in and of its own, rather than being an answer, while the other three are actually answers. So imagine if episode Oracle's first episode did not have the dream sequence. There's just gonna be so many more questions in the viewer's minds, in which the average viewer would probably just be pondering around those facts a lot. Like, one point might be, why does Ash actually know if the Darkers are going to appear, or why does Ash know if Matoi is going to appear here, while the others did not realize at all? Then you think back to the very beginning and you see, Ash was in some kind of like a test chamber probably-ish. In your own minds might actually be just like, hey, I guess that's probably it. So you don't really ponder about it anymore. Or actually getting the answers of who is who, and then as you watch the story, you're like, oh, it's that person from the dream sequence. Or like, oh, it's this person from the dream sequence. And something like that. It makes a lot of the plot devices feel like it actually just makes sense, because things just didn't come out of nowhere. As in like, something that comes out of left field completely that you don't even expect. But this is, you're already expecting something to happen, so it just doesn't feel too weird. Which honestly is a really good thing, considering the pacing of episode Oracle itself. Since episode Oracle's storytelling is rather fast-paced, to keep the viewers on the edge of their seats. There's a lot of action, the storytelling is super vivid, it's really dynamic and all that, and really engaging as well. So overall, in my opinion, I just feel like the dream sequence is really well done, because it actually just ends up answering a lot of questions that the viewers may potentially have as they watch through the story. And it really helps strengthen the plot devices as well, and also foreshadow the things that are going to happen in the future, not just for this one episode. So yeah, this episode of my analysis just ended up being talking about how much I like the dream sequence and why, rather than actually even talking about the themes and everything of the story. So probably that's gonna be something that I'll do in a later video. Possibly when more episodes of episode Oracle is already out. So we'll see how that one goes. With that, I would like to leave you with two questions. Number one, what do you all think about the dream sequence? Is it good? Is it not great? Is it too spoilery? What do you think about that? And number two is, do you agree that having more questions is better than answers? Because after all, it keeps you wanting for more. While if you have answers, you're already done because you're already satisfied with having the answer. I'm pretty sure that this is a theme that episode Oracle is going to continue using, which means we'll only have more questions in the later episodes. And I'm really sure that it'll be super satisfying when we actually get an expansion, as well as an explanation of basically everything that happened in Ash's dream sequence. With that, if you haven't already, come join us on Discord to discuss about more. The link is on the screen as well as in the description below, so definitely I'll see you there. And I'll also be seeing you in the next video. So don't forget to smile and have a great day. Azalara signing off.